if you look at the Civil War, and again, as a guy that loves America, got America tattooed on my body, I've been traveling this country since I was 17 years old. I love it here. But as far as states' rights are concerned, if the South had known that they can never leave the Union, they would have never ratified the Constitution. They would have been their own countries, and we would be more of European. There would be the Republic of Virginia, the Principality of North Carolina. Now, would that have been good? Is it good that Lincoln threw the Constitution away? And he did. You know, this is not condemning Lincoln, but he suspended the First Amendment. He controlled the media. He imprisoned people that were critical of him and didn't let the South do what they wanted. Now, you can make the argument that, you know, slavery was a crime against humanity and that it needed to be eradicated, so they had the moral right, the moral imperative to enforce federal law upon those states. But really, if you look at it from the concept of self-governance, if you look at it from a perspective of what we think this country is supposed to be about, you know, the rule of the people wanted out. They voted. The people in those states voted to leave the United States. If that's what the people wanted, why wouldn't the United States let them leave? Now, you can say, you know, this is not making a moral judgment about the South and about, you know, obviously slavery. And I am of the opinion slavery would have died out anyway. Slavery didn't end because of the Civil War. Slavery ended because of innovation, because of the cotton gin. Slavery ended because slavery is very, very, very expensive, the same way imperialism ended. Capitalism ended slavery. Now, everybody blames capitalism for slavery, but capitalism ended slavery. It's very expensive to house, feed slaves. As poorly as you can treat them, it's still very expensive. It's a lot more expensive than a lawnmower. It's a lot more expensive than a cotton gin. Machines, industrialization ended slavery. Or did it? Are we wage slaves? Are we tax slaves? Are we all indentured servants? That's a whole nother conversation. But slavery was going to go away in the South anyway. Would have taken years. So, hey, look, if you were a slave, you're like, no, I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting for innovation. No, free me now. I totally get it. But as far as the principles of what our country was supposed to be founded on, yeah, Lincoln really did not follow those. The first Republican president, anything but small government. I see it from both sides. I really do. I see Lincoln doing what he had to do to keep the Union together. But then I see the South being like, hey, why do we need to keep the Union together? Like, what the hell? We want to do our own thing. Why can't people be allowed to do their own thing? Isn't that the whole point of this? Isn't that the whole point of this experiment in self-government? Let us do our thing, man. We just want to do our thing. Now, what would have happened if we did? Would we have had a balkanization? Would it be like Europe? Would North Carolina eventually invade South Carolina to make it one Carolina? Would New York invade New Jersey? Would they argue over territorial claims in Staten Island? Like, who knows? It would have been messy. It would have been very messy for sure. Mexico retakes Texas, California. We weren't done with imperialism. If the Civil War, if the South was able to break away with the Civil War, I wonder if Britain would have had one last gasp at empire, come back over, take over some places. I wonder.
Yeah, so Luke seems to be pretty invested in this. His most recent one was cities in the North burned in riots against the government for attacking its own citizens.
Yeah. Not only that, don't forget, you want to talk about the immigration crisis. Irish, Polish, Italian, they got off the boats at Ellis Island, and they either had to pay $500, which back then would be the equivalent, I believe, of about 20 grand today.
Damn, that's crazy.
Or they were shipped down south to go fight for the North in the front lines.
What?
Because the war was so unpopular in the North that they took the immigrants and they immediately, as soon as they were processed at Ellis Island, they were shipped to the battlefronts and fought.
What do you think about birds? Brett Patterson mentioned birds aren't real.
Birds aren't real. That's another great one. Have you ever seen a baby bird? Birds hatching eggs. Have you ever seen a bird? Why aren't there bird eggs everywhere? How come we're not walking on bird eggshells? Birds aren't real. They're all drones to watch you. That's got to be the most tinfoil hat. That's got to be.
It's up there for sure.
That's got to be one of the most tinfoil. Can you imagine living your life looking at birds and thinking like, "Oh, the government's watching me again"? That's a rough way to go.
Yeah, I couldn't relate.
Can you imagine like that's the one that ends up being true out of all of them? You know, like I always thought about that. You know, I was thinking about doing a bit one time, and I'm like thinking about like, man, you know, how do I make my case that I deserve to go to heaven? Like I'm sitting there with St. Peter. And like St. Peter pulls out this list, and I'm like, oh no, that's all my sins. That's all of them. Oh man, that's thick. That's a thick list. You ate meat on Friday over 2,000 times in your life. I was like, what? That's the one? It was the meat on Friday? Yeah. I'm like, none of the other ones? No, the other ones are fine. It was the meat on Friday. That's why you can't come into the club. It's like, what? I can't come in the Sky VIP because I ate meat on Friday? Ah, man. Ah, jeez.
I mean, it's the same concept with like Dogecoin. You know, it's probably going to be the least expected one, given it's one of the sillier ones. But
nah, Doge, you got to take Doge serious. It would be more like Pepe or like.
But in the initial phase,
yeah, like Shiba Inu, if like that blows up, yeah. I allowed myself to get hopeful about crypto. That was a mistake. I allowed myself to get hopeful, thinking like the people could actually take some power back from the machine. But now the machine has just completely gobbled it up. They figure it out, boy. You know, the BlackRock of the world, State Street, Vanguard, they figure it out quick. You got to give them, they are good at evil, man. They are just so good at being bad. Anything that can give us any sort of autonomy from them, they identify it and they destroy it.
I mean, it's a casino.
They identify it and they destroy it.
The house always wins.
Yeah, if
nobody always wins.
Yeah,
did I say that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Not everybody wins.
Like
never.
We have nothing but trees, right? Like let's talk about like Brooklyn, where I was born, New York. Government plants trees on the sidewalks, and it's good. It's good to have native plant life. Because it stops erosion. Remember, it's an island, right? So like it's good. The roots go deep, right? Gives place for indigenous wildlife. But why are all of the trees that they plant, why are none of them fruit-bearing trees? Why can't we have just oranges everywhere down here in Florida? Because that used to be the case. And I'm talking about like the 1950s when the mob was still running Miami and people were going back and forth to Cuba. You can just walk down the street in downtown Fort Lauderdale and pick an orange off a tree.
Regulations.
Well, that's the thing, right? We could have how many? Imagine a world where you're just walking down the street and there's a peach tree, and you just pull a peach, right? Like, it sounds crazy to say it, and you'd have all these animals, all these critters and everything like that eating, and you don't want the squirrels, you don't want the iguanas. Yeah, I guess so, I suppose. We have them now anyway. But why wouldn't we just allow nature to give free, healthy, nutritious food to our population?
It was a commodity back then, right? So
it's a commodity now.
It's a territorial sort of thing.